Slack and E Major welcome you to the My Type of Hype podcast, where we celebrate hip-hop, not just the hype.
How y'all feel out there?
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Welcome, everybody, to My Type of Hype, the podcast that celebrates hip-hop and not just the hype. It actually feels weird me introducing the show because those of you who watch, you're used to Slack doing the introduction. He's not here today, but we're going to keep it moving. We've got a couple of guests on with us. Well, one guest, Potter's a regular now, so we've got one guest. A shout out to Slack. He'll be back with us next week. But we're going to have a good one this week. So, as you know, E Major in the house. Potter, what are you saying, bro? How are you?
Salute. It's, Potter, a.k.a. Reggie McWorthy, a.k.a. Luke Page. Yeah, I'm just here to drop some signs this week.
Big Page. That's a funny one, bro. I swear you got a different AKA every week, bro. That's funny. And as you can see, we've got a new face on the panel. Supporter of the show. I've known this brother for a very, very, very long time. Go back decades. A supporter of the culture. Very knowledgeable with hip hop. Jay, what you saying, bro? How are you?
Yes, E Major. Thanks for having me on, Potter. Good to see you, bros. Appreciate having me on. It's my podcast debut, so hopefully I can bring something different to the table. So happy to be here, man.
Yeah, thanks for joining, man. So those of you that follow us on Twitter as well, you'll know Jay as well, man. Always having the conversations and that, and chiming in and having good hip hop discussions, man. So yes, today, we're gonna get straight into it, man. We're gonna get into an episode called Surprise Favorites. And what this is we're consumers of music, man. We're buying music all the time, listening to music. So we're just thinking about and going to talk about some times that maybe we've bought an album or tapped into an artist or something that we maybe weren't expecting much from, or we didn't know of them, or we knew of them but didn't like any of their previous work, or whatever the reason is. But that product, that artist, that album, whatever, became a surprise favorite of ours. So it will make sense as we go on along more. So yeah, man, we thought we'd chop it up about that today. So I guess I'll kick us off just for some clarity and understanding in that. So we'll go around, we'll go in circles, man, take it in turns. But yeah, so one of the ones I want to start off with as a surprise favorite for me is an album from 2022, Ghetto Gods by Earth Gang. And I'm gonna mention that straight away because as soon as I thought of this topic, that was one of the first albums that came to mind. Now, just to clarify, we're not saying that these artists are whack or nothing like that, but just, for whatever reason, we were surprised that we liked it so much. I didn't really check for Earth Gang before. I wouldn't say there were people that were on my radar or anything like that. And if I'm really honest with you, their sound and style ain't really something I tap into often. But yeah, it was 2022. As you know, new music drops every Friday. And that dropped, and I like the cover, like the kids on the front with the eyes on the, and I just thought, interesting. Let me play it. I just played it, and I was instantly hooked, man. I thought this is actually sick. And I remember I was working from home, and I was playing the album while I was doing admin and that, and I just had it on repeat for a couple hours, man. And I thought this is actually sick, man. I remember posting it on the timeline a few times, and even a couple of people's responses like, right, I didn't think this would be something that you like. And I thought, right, this, you know what I mean? So it's all things like that add to the topic. But yeah, Ghetto Gods. And I've checked out work since, and I've liked it. They dropped something, was it earlier this year? Or maybe even last year, they dropped an EP or something. And it's decent. But for me, Ghetto Gods is sick. It's definitely going to be something I go back to. I think me and Slack done a album wrap-up for 2022. And I mentioned that as one of my favorites of the year. So, yeah, man, what's your thoughts? Any of you, man, did you check that out at all? Ghetto Gods?
I'm not going to lie, man. I've never heard any Earth Gang. Like, I remember when, like, there was a bit of a, probably around when you picked that album up, to be honest. There was a bit of a buzz around it. And I think I probably got turned off because, if I remember rightly, there was a bunch of youths on social media comparing to saying they were better than Outkast, and I was like, I'm not having that. That's slanderous. Like, how dare you? So I think that probably put me off, like tapping into the album.
Yeah. I see the comparison. I see why people would do that, where they're from, two of them, and just I see it. But very different. And I think that's the key for you, probably because you heard all that build up. You was like, I didn't have any expectation. I literally just played it just for checking it out. And I think sometimes that's the best way, because you just, you know what I mean? Did you check it out, Jay? You know,
what are they on? What are they on? What kind of vibe is it?
And that's the thing. I don't want to, because it sounds like I'm contradicting what I just said, but they do come across like an Outcast vibe, yeah. But they also, for me, they also felt like a Southern Dead Prez as well, because the topic. So not as topical and not as socially aware as Dead Prez. Like it's not a Let's Be Free. It's fun having, it's party music, definitely. You know what I mean? But there's messages there, there's content there, flow. For me, it just ticked a few boxes, man. That was like it's because sometimes you can have the topical music, but the replay value ain't there as much. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Someone I think about when I think about that is Paris a lot. Like his albums are incredible. Do you know what I mean? But for me, they're incredible for a different reason. There's not that much replay value in a sense of a musical sense. But Ghetto Gods had that for me. Like, do you know what I'm saying? So yeah, definitely worth checking out if you haven't.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I'll tap into that, man.
I'll check that.
I'll take your recommendation. But yeah, I've not really heard any stuff. So I can't really. I mean,
yeah, exactly that. Yeah. Did you check it out, Jay? Do you know the album?
No. This is the first I've heard of these guys. To be fair, I must have missed when you posted that one. But yeah, I'll check it out. Outcast, I respect them a lot. I'm not really a massive Outcast fan, to be honest.
Okay.
In terms of, I respect them as MCs. I think they're dope MCs, but the music, I would say, is not. Okay, the massive. The music is the albums. The first album, I dig the first album, but after that, little bits and pieces of Outcast, not really deep into the Outcast sort of style. So, but yeah, I'll definitely check it out. I'll definitely check it out. Don't get me wrong.
It's our first link, man. We're not going to start beef already.
No, but I think Outcasts are incredible MCs. Like the way they rap, I love how they rap.
Yeah. No, they're definitely, but they can be acquired taste. There's no doubt about that. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, you can be. I mean, now I appreciate them way more than I did before, and I did like them. The first, I was saying to Slack when we was talking about the first album didn't really blow me away, if I'm honest. But then when I heard the singles off of 80 Aliens, I'm thinking, right, these are actually mad. And then when a Cremonite dropped, it was just like, these are. I
think what because we sort of discussed this the other week with the sophomore things like off camera, but I think Southern Playalistic is probably their most accessible album for but 80 Aliens has got better singles, if that kind of makes sense.
Definitely.
More people were turned on to them with that. But then I think if you've been into them from day one, then Southern Playalistic is easily the best album for you to, if you don't really know a lot about them, to sort of find out what they're all about.
Yeah, definitely. So Jay, as the guest, we'll go to you next. What's your first pick?
If I'm going to make an example which is similar to you, I would say probably when I first heard Stove God Cook's album, Rock Marcy produced, Reasonable Drought. Obviously, I see it like floating around the timeline, and a couple of people were saying it's good, produced by Rock Marcy. Obviously, I know Rock Marcy is. I'm a fan of his production as well, so. I thought I'd give it a try. The cover didn't look good. I felt the cover was a little bit off-putting to me.
The cover's terrible, man. The cover's terrible.
Wow. Terrible. I thought, it's called Reasonable Drought. Obviously, old page to Jay-Z. That's like my favorite album of all time. So I thought I'd give it a spin. And I was totally blown away by it. At first, I didn't know how to take it at first as well, because obviously he's in that sphere of like the rappers, the underground rappers, but he's a bit more animated. He has a bit more of an animated style. There was a lot more hook involved as well, which is, you know, a bit more like a commercial. So he has a bit more of a balance of like that sort of like commercial style with singing. He's more melodic. Not many of the rappers in the underground scene are melodic, so that it gave it a different spin on it, on those type of beats, on those type of like underground drumless sort of loops, which, you know, people don't really do too often. So it gave it a different spin. Even his style of rapping, like his energy and the pockets that he goes in, is completely different. I feel like, and yeah, I was really impressed by that album, to the point where, you know, I was really eager to hear a lot more from him and stuff like that. So yeah, I would say that took me by surprise, and it was like my favorite album of 2020. And I thought there was a lot of good albums in 2020 as well.
Yeah, it was, you know, 2020 was a good year.
Yeah, obviously due to COVID and everybody's stuck at home, so I guess, you know, all you could do is produce good music. So you know, you got no choice. Yeah, I would say that album really took me by surprise. The production wasn't a surprise, but just the performance of Stove God Cooks. So yeah, I would put that as my example.
Yeah, that's
I think that's a dope album, man. Super good. I'll be honest, like I hadn't really tapped into like Rock Marcy and that like too much, but I mean, I knew who he was and I'd heard a couple of bits, but and for an album that is mainly drumless, which generally I hate, I love that album, man. Like for all the reasons that Jay said, like I really like his like persona, like his swagger, like it's just different. Like, and I never thought like a song with like I'm smelling like a brick right now. It's like brilliant. Just talking about smelling like cocaine, and I'm like, this is amazing. Like I don't even know what this would be.
Nah, it's so true, man. Like that album for me, you hit the nail on the head, Potter, man. I ain't really. I mean, we speak about it on another episode. I ain't really that hot on the whole drumless thing. Do you know what I mean? You and I did say it as well. You've got to have a certain level of charisma to pull off the whole
100%.
Drumless thing. You know what I mean? I've said it before. I'm not really a big Rock Marcy fan like that. So same. I'm not really, like Jay said, man. I sort of flown around on the timeline, and if you men are like me, there's always stuff floating on the timeline. People are always calling things classic. It don't make me want to listen. But if there's certain individuals that are like, this is hard, I'll tap in on their cosign, if you know what I'm saying. Because you kind of know, you don't always like the same things, but you kind of know the level of the standard that they have for music. And I think Kill was one of the people that was going on about Stove God, man.
He loves that album, man.
He loved the album. And like Jay said, I was thinking, nah, that artwork is mad. It's like some X-Men Avenger wannabe. It's just looks mad. Like his eyes and all that. Some cartoon drawing them like that. But yeah, one day I just spun it. Like I think COVID times, innit? I was just listening to so much music them times. And yeah, I just thought this is actually insane. It's what he done on the beats. Like no one else could have pulled that off like that. And it have the replay value that it has. It's mad. Yeah, incredible album. There's one song, it's left my mind now, man. It's annoying me, but I used to just have it on repeat.
Is it Jim Boheim? Yeah, Jim Boheim.
Yes, brother. Yes, you got it. That's the one, bro.
Yeah,
that was just on repeat for me, man. But yeah, incredible album, man. That's a good shout. That's a very good example of what they're talking about, actually. But I didn't know. Yeah, I wasn't even expecting that to be like that. But it became definitely one of my favorites, man. It's a classic. It's one of the most recent. I mean, I know it's still early days kind of thing, but I think it will go down as one of the most recent classics in hip hop. Definitely.
I'm pretty sure Kill. That's for him. That's a 5 mic up.
Yeah.
I think Slack said the same as well.
I gave it a 5 mics. I gave it a 5 mics.
Dope album, man. It's a dope album.
Yeah,
it really is, man. Potter, what you got, bro?
All right, I'm gonna switch it up a little bit because it's not an album; it's more of an artist.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
It's crazy that Slack's not here today because like he would 100% know why I'm doing this. So it's the artist is Bubba Sparks, right? Now bear with me.
Yeah.
Bear with
Your
me.
other alias.
Yeah, he's my spirit animal. But like when obviously Ugly dropped, yeah, and that was interesting. But the Timbaland co-sign was also interesting, and I did feel like I was working for Universal at the time, so I had that album like a couple of weeks before everybody else, and I just wasn't interested in listening to it at all because I was like, I thought it was like parody rap. Do you know what I mean? I thought it was some shit like Afro Man or whatever.
Yeah.
This guy ended up with Timbaland producing a tune. I have no idea. But I didn't know that obviously Timbaland produced a whole album, and Organized Noise were on it as well. And it's actually he's good. He can rap. After I listened to it, yeah, I was like, he's good. But then the second album came out, Deliverance, I think that was. And listen, right? I know I'm probably in a minority with a lot of people here. That album is ahead of its time. Like, I'm not joking. So Timbaland was doing some stuff that I've never heard before in my life. Like, so the first album obviously is more hip hoppy, and you can see where he's like maybe took some beats that Missy didn't want or whatever and put them on there. But the second one it's like, I don't really know how to describe it. It's like redneck hip hop. Like, it's got a real country, got a real country feel to it. There's a lot of like acoustic guitars, but still with that Timbaland magic that he sprinkles throughout everything. And it's really good. Like the storytelling's great. The lyrics are good. He's really upped his lyrical game on that album. And it's just something I hadn't heard before. And now it's like kind of commonplace because you got people like Yellow Wolf and Post Malone and all of them lot doing that kind of stuff. Like, it's hip hop, like country, but with like a hip hop edge to it, I guess. But this was, when that album come out? It was like 2000, 2003.
That same three, is that wrong? Yeah.
And I'm sure he's probably done stuff since that I've not checked out. But like, I was fully expecting to hate this guy because I was like, this just, we don't need this. Like, you don't need Fat Hick on a tractor.
Yeah, bro. Like, the mud and everything.
But you know what? It's good. Like, and the second one I really like because it wasn't as commercially successful, but like in terms of musically, I thought it was really, because I've never heard Timbaland do anything like the beats he was doing on that before. And it was just really interesting. Maybe it spoke to my inner hick, I don't know. But it was just dope, man. And then he started doing stuff with like the Rough Rider. He's done a song with like Jadakiss on like.
I was just thinking about that song. And he held his own.
Oh, song, isn't it?
Yeah, and he held his own. Like, Kiss didn't blow him out of the water, if you ask me. Like, he held his own. I was thinking about that song.
So that, for me, I was very surprised that I was going to like it because I was fully expecting to hate this guy. And he sort of won me over a little bit with the first album. But the second one really impressed me just because it was completely different to any sort of hip hop I'd heard.
I need to spin that again. I'm familiar with the first album, but I don't think I gave the second one that much airplay. I need to go back to that.
It's an acquired taste. I'm not saying like, I mean, I know last week and I was like, you man need to tap into Swollen Members, their pause, they're banging, all of that.
No, I did. The album was hard, actually. Yeah, I went into it. I did check it out. Yeah. And you know what's mad though, bro? You know what's mad? When you was speaking about that Swollen Members, I was like, okay, yeah, let me go into it. So I went into it on Spotify, and I had bare songs that I had added to a playlist. So I know the album. I had listened to it and liked some of the songs, but for some reason, when you mentioned it, I don't know, it just didn't stick with me. But yeah, that's a hard album. That one. That's definitely the one you mentioned.
Told you.
But
yeah, so
but yeah, I want to check
that
that.
was me, man. I think Bubba Sparks. I was fully just ready to hate this guy. Like I was like, nah. coming into this culture with that shit, tractors. Like, what are you doing? And, yeah, like, it turned out right, man. And I think, to be honest, that second album made me kind of expand my ear a little bit. I was really deep into like West Coast gangster rap at that time, and I was like, I need to maybe start listening to some wider shit. So
I never really had a big opinion on Bubba Sparks. I thought the Ugly Tune was cool, and I just didn't take him serious. You know what I mean? I just thought it was a bit gimmicky. It was a good record. It was a good record when you're in the club to mix with, get your freak on. You know, Timbaland is a genius, but I was never a massive fan of all Timbaland albums. I don't know. I always felt they were. I liked certain singles. I thought the singles and a few other album tracks were great, but I think for a whole album, I just couldn't. I couldn't stay switched on for Timbaland.
It can be a bit much because it's so out there. A lot of his beats are crazy. Right, and I think I tweeted about it the other day. Is like, I'll just be sitting there sometimes and I'm thinking about like all of these hot beats that Timbaland's done, and then I realise that he gave them to Magoo, and it just pisses me off.
That was the album, the production, yeah. But you know what
so,
though?
Like, I was listening to Under Construction the other day, like one of the tunes come on. And just him and Magoo on the tune, but the beat is one of the hardest beats I've ever heard in my life. I'm like, it's a waste. Why are you giving it to this guy?
I mean, you're not a top producer if you can't do a Carry Job album. I mean, there's probably a few producers that have done a good Carry Job album. It's a good test to your production skills. You can balance a whack rapper. You know, like one of my favorite albums is, you might not think that they're whack, but Group Home album is one of my favorite albums of all time. That's the Carry Job album. That's the Carry Job album of all time for me.
That's the blueprint of Carry Job albums, bro. That's like the blueprint, man. Because they're not good rappers, man. Like, and I always say that. That's
the album.
Yeah, but you know what? Yeah, exactly. And we've had this argument before. That's what I always say. Because obviously in an ideal world, you want the production to be hard, the bars to be hard. Obviously, you want the perfect marriage. But if I had to gun to head pick, I need the beats more than the bars. And then someone will say, oh, that's shallow. But the example I always give is 2 albums. The why I say that beats is very important is Living Proof, because the bars are weak, but everyone calls that album a classic. Why? Because of the production, And then the other example I give to prove my argument is Cannabis. Like, look at the Cannabis album. The production's weak. Everyone says that album's rubbish. Lyrically, if you finish this episode right now and go and play Cannabis album, lyrically, there's nothing wrong with that album. It's the production. So I always use those 2 albums for examples, and I'm talking about the importance of production. But
2 stellar examples, to be fair.
That's the thing. That's why when you say Group Home, I'm like, I agree, because it's like, definitely, man, that's a classic. No one on earth is going to tell you that's a classic because of the bars. It's not. It's the beats. You know what I mean?
That maybe.
Little Dak can do his thing a bit. Do you know what I mean? But nah, not Malachi.
Malachi is terrible.
Nah, bro. Seriously. But that's a good point what you said about Timbo, though. It's true. Like, even Missy, I love Missy to death. But sometimes when you listen to a lot of albums that are all produced by one producer, sometimes it's very touch and go if you can enjoy the whole album like that to let it run. There's very few artists, I think, obviously apart from Primo, because he's probably king of that. One of the people I always mention is Apollo Brown. Like, him just producing whole albums, he doesn't put foot out of place. It's just I have no issues with it. But it's actually mad what you said about Timbo, because I was listening to a Missy album recently, and I was thinking that to myself. I like Timbo. He wouldn't be in my top 10 producers, but I like Timbo a lot. He's got some of my favorite songs. But it's true, you can only, I think, listen to a lot of Timbo in you know what I mean, stages. Like you can't really just consistent. Like I've got a Primo playlist, even a Kanye West production playlist, Just Blaze playlist. I ain't got a Timbo playlist. You understand what I'm saying?
But I think the issue is that Timbo was originally an R&B producer.
Yeah.
I feel like if you're gonna have a project to
Timbo,
listen to full Timbo, it's gonna be one of the R&B albums.
Right? Yeah, because you don't feel like that when you're listening to Aaliyah albums.
Yeah,
like, do you know what I mean? So
Bachelor, man, that's phenomenal.
Exactly. Great shout.
Time the Bachelor was when that dropped.
Yeah.
That is a phenomenal album, man. I must have posted that maybe earlier this year. I was just listening to it again, and I'm like, this album is actually insane. Like, or Justin Timberlake, even
so good.
Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And even like Justin Timberlake Justified album, like, do you know what I mean? Even album. No, sorry, what am I thinking? Is that Timberlake?
The first one.
The first, that's Timbo, isn't it? The first album.
Yeah, both of them.
Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So good shout, man. That's true. Bubba Sparks, yeah. All right, my turn. I'm gonna go with. I went with a group, didn't I? No, I went with Earth Gang. I'm gonna go with a. I'm gonna go with a song. Pole Pimp, Do or Die.
Oh,
okay. Yeah.
Listen. I'll never forget. I would never forget the day when I first heard Pole Pimp. Right?
Do you wanna ride?
Yes. Listen. When I first heard that, and I think it was AK was rapping, someone else was, and I thought, because I loved Bone them times, innit? Do you know what I mean? So I remember thinking, who are these Bone Thug wannabes? And I thought, this is seriously. I was angry the first time I heard it, but then Twister came in, innit? And I'm like, nah, this is actually insane. To this day, Pole Pimp for me, the only thing I can say is like 5 Mic ain't enough for that song for me. Like it's incredible. Like the beat. Yeah. So now everyone's verse on it I love. Like everyone. So because after the strength of that one song, I bought Picture This, innit? And I remember even my brethren came around, shout out to Lennox. My brethren come around my house one time and he was going through my collection and their album was there, Picture This. And he was like, damn, you got every album, man. Who actually went into the shop and bought this album? You know what I'm saying? It was one of those ones that no one is really thinking about them or talking about them. But off of the strength of that single, I bought that album. And I think that album's sick, man. I like that album.
Think how many albums we've done that with, though. You'd see a tune on like MTV Raps or whatever. And then you go buy the album because, like, what else can you do? Like, you can't have a listen to it. So you spend like 19 quid because it's been imported.
But that's why my argument about sales don't really mean much, because I could have bought that album. That's a sale to them, but I could have brought that album home, hated every bit of it, and never played it again.
Yeah,
but it's still got the sale.
Albums like that I've spent a ton of money on that are just terrible.
That's what I mean. So that's why sales and that
was advertised in the back of the source, like Bay Area players and all of that sort of stuff. I've got like 12 of them. Shit, like, just because they got one rapping Forte tune on or something. You're like, that's what I'm saying. But man,
they don't know the struggle of buying album off the strength of one song. You know, exactly. But that's a testament to a really good single as well, man. You know, there's times where you might wait for the second, third single, because I remember, I think when I first heard Ludacris's first album, and I thought I loved that What's Your Fantasy, but I think it was after I heard Southern Hospitality or something like that, and then I thought, all right, let me go and buy the album and see what the rest is saying. But there's been albums I bought off of one, like I remember Nonchalant, 5 o'clock in the morning. I thought
Yeah,
that song was big. I loved that song back in the day, right? So we went and bought the
100.
Nonchalant album, but
Nah, it's weak. It's weak.
I did not fuck with that album one
I
bit,
don't care.
man.
No one says. I heard someone on the timeline the other day trying to say, "Oh, how come no one talks about this album? It's incredible." I'm like, nah, it ain't. This is
No.
a perfect example of where the single carries the whole thing. The
Yeah,
album's weak,
yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah, that was a banger of the day. Trust me.
Listen,
Yeah, but
if
do or
if
die, man. Paul Pimp.
if Pole
yeah.
Pimp
Great song.
isn't how you first got turned on to Twister, we ain't got nothing to talk about musically,
Yeah,
man. Like,
exactly.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Say that again,
Yeah,
bro.
I did the
Say that again.
I did the opposite of you, E, because when I heard that song, I was thinking about where is this twist? I want to hear Twister. I want to hear. I didn't want to hear. I didn't want to hear Do or Die. I want to
Did you
hear
get a Twister and the Speed Not Mobsters album?
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, that was a
But
great
yeah,
song.
that's a hard song, man. Jay,
Yeah,
what you got?
this might be a bit controversial. I want to go with the Game documentary.
Oh, what? You didn't think you'd like it? You were surprised to like it?
When I first heard the Game, yeah. All right, so obviously, I first heard the Game off a mixtape I bought of Seven Sisters. It was a mixtape full of diss tracks, yeah, and it had the Game on there.
Good old days.
The diss to Joe Buddens, over the colors, you know, the Ice-T
Oh,
colors.
yeah.
That was my debut to the Game, right? So obviously I didn't know too much about the guy. I just heard that he signed to G Unit and he's from the West Coast. So I thought, this is just, this is a gimmick. Oh, they got a Southern guy, they got East Coast guy. Now they're just plugging the gaps with a West Coast guy. I heard the song and I wasn't impressed. I also heard him on a freestyle with G Unit. And it was over the CeeLo Timberland beat.
Okay,
yeah. So that was those two tracks were the first time I heard the Game, and I heard his verse, and I was not impressed. And I thought, this guy's filler. I was fully convinced he was gonna be the first G Unit flop out of the lot. Like he was just filler. Because I didn't know that Dre signed him, and he was Dre's guy. I just thought he was just part of G Unit. And to be fair, G Unit's been doing their thing for a while. Obviously, they put out good music. I actually felt like the Lloyd Banks album wasn't as good as I thought it was going to be.
I agree. 100 for more. Yeah. I think
so
two's better.
Because I really had high expectations for that album. It didn't live up to it for me.
But it's no more than solid.
Yeah, it's just solid. But I thought because I think obviously Banks is a better rapper. I just assumed he would make a better album. But then the Game one, I had zero expectations. I actually first heard the album. My friend he had a bootleg copy. Obviously, I heard How We Do. I thought How We Do was class.
How We Do, another incredible song, man. I don't care, man. Love that.
Yeah, of course. But when I heard the album, I could not believe how bloody good the production was on this album. The production on the Game documentary, it was absolutely flawless. To the point where, I mean, it had all the names that you could think of on the album, which I thought was a bit strange for Aftermath album to have Kanye West, Just Blaze, Havoc is on the album, High Tech, you know what I mean? And the lineup was just, it was brilliant. I thought it was an absolute class album.
It's a classic,
even to this day, it's probably my favorite G Unit album. I even play it more than the Get Rich or Die Trying. I felt like it was something the West Coast needed as well. And at the time I felt it was a bit of a carry job. Like I didn't really rate. I thought it was a great album, but I still didn't rate Game that much from a lyrical standpoint. But today, I think when I go back and listen to it, I still listen to it today. I think I didn't give Game enough credit. I thought he actually performed pretty all right on that album. In fact, pretty well. There's certain tracks I thought was really good on that album, like No More Fun and Games. I thought he was class on that record. So,
and he had only just started rapping. When you think about it, like he had literally only been rapping about a year and a half, like when he wrote that album. So you know what I mean? There's definite improvement.
Did he write it though?
You know what? I think he did. Shall I tell you what I think he did? Like, I mean, you got to think about. I mean, even 50 himself said that he wrote the hook for Lloyd Banks on Fire off of the back of Nelly's Hot in Here. We know how we do. We know 50 wrote the hell out of that. So we know that 50's pen was involved heavily. But in my opinion, I think it was just for the song structure and the hooks, because as we know, it's easy to write a few bars. It's not easy to construct a song. It's a different thing. 50's king of song construction. And I think that's where his pen was involved on the documentary. And the reason I say that, Potter, is because let's keep it real. I know Game, you know what I mean, he's laughable now, but we've got to put a little bit of respect on his name, like for his catalogue. His catalogue is strong. And when you think about it, it's a classic,
with him, because
but when you go to what's the second album?
Doctor's Advocate.
Doctor's Advocate. I know a few heads that think that album's better than the documentary.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I'm not saying I necessarily agree, but the point I'm making is that even after 50 weren't being involved anymore, he still, the writing was still similar. It's not like Fat Joe's improvement when Pun came on the scene. That's just evident. Do you know what I mean? But I think like Game still, his stuff has been consistent like that.
Yeah,
I think
it's difficult for me, man.
Song structure, man.
Because like he can bar. I'm not gonna sit here and say that he can't. Like he can definitely rap, but I just don't like. And you know what a big West Coast head I am. Like, I just can't find anything about him that I like. It's weird because he can rap his ass off, but it's just something about the constant name dropping.
Nah, that's definitely off.
Like I'm not interested in listening to that. It's just, and it's like all this people you're name dropping is like the people I grew up listening to, and they wouldn't dream of doing shit like you're doing. And that's But you know, he's talented, man. That album is a classic. I'm not going to say it isn't. And he can rap. It's just him. I have just an issue with.
100%. The reason I give Game his props as well is because if Documentary was his only dope album, then I'd be like, But if you look at his catalogue, I think he's got, you know what I mean, Doctor's Advocate, Jesus Peace, 1992. He's got strong albums. Do you know what I'm saying? But that's a good shout. He's
definitely someone who's gone further than I thought he was. That's why it's a surprise to me, because I thought he was a bum. Not gonna lie, I definitely thought he was a bum. So
I mean, he is, but he can rap.
But you don't do yourself no favors.
Watch our pod, and I'm gonna get death threats, man. Trust me.
Most people would agree anyway. You got the next one.
So my one was it's another artist. It's Chris Rivers. So I hadn't really heard a lot about him other than the fact that he was Pun's son. And I was like, I'm not even interested in this. Like, Pun has got a real special place in my hip hop heart, and I'm like, I'm not. If he's not as good, it's going to ruin everything for me. And I just wasn't interested. And then one day I heard a Joel Ortiz tune called Latinos Part 2. And Ortiz has got the anchor verse, but he's before. And I was like, who the fuck is this guy? Like, he's really good. And then I did a bit of digging and found out it was Chris Rivers. And I just went down a bit of a rabbit hole, and like he's done tunes with like Terminology. Terminology is one of those rappers that I really, really think is underrated. Styles P, Talib, like Vinny Paz, like all of these like really dope, grimy underground rappers that I like.
Rugged Man, I think he's got tracks in
it. Rather Rugged Man, Slain. So, and he can really spit, man. Like, I'm not gonna sit here and say he's as good as his dad. He isn't, but who is? But I mean, he's pretty close, man. It's a completely different. You can hear when he's like on it. You can hear little touches of Pun in some of his bars. And like, obviously, I know like he wanted to do it off his own thing. He had problems with how his dad treated his mum, and obviously all the problems with Fat Joe. like he wanted to do it off of his own back. And Christ, man, he is unbelievable. Like he is like, I'd put him bar for bar, I'd put him up against most anybody. Like he's really good. And like I don't think he's had really an opportunity to shine as much as he could, because he is still kind of underground. I don't really think he's got like albums, but every single feature I've heard him on, he's killed it.
Yeah. No, you're right, man. You're right. Because even him going by Chris Rivers, because he didn't want to go by Little Pun or whatever, because he wanted that separation. But no, I agree, man. He's the cold MC, man. He don't have much out though, does he?
No, I mean, like I say, he's done bits with other. He's done a shed load of stuff with terminology, so he's all over like term stuff, static selector and that sort of bits and pieces. But yeah, but like I've not heard anything bad. Like I've not heard a bad verse from him at all. Like he's really good, and like the people he's with, like the people he's done stuff with, they're really different styles of hip hop. So you know, like Ra's on his own thing, like Slane's different to Vinnie Paz, and you know, Talib Kweli's different, to Styles P's different. Like it's, and he can just, like his dad, can sort of move in between all of those different styles and kill it.
No, I agree, man. He's a cold MC. Definitely. When I heard Pud's son was rapping about that,
it's a big shoes to fill as well. So you know, I before I heard him, I would go in there with that expectation. This guy is just going to be a complete bum. I just feel like you're just not going to be able to match. You're not going to be able to match like the hunger of your pops. No way. But
literally,
he's good, man.
no, that's wrong. That's wrong.
No pun intended, man. But he is good, man. He definitely carries the torch, good, man. So
100%.
I respect that, man.
I think that his dad would definitely be. His dad would definitely be proud of the skills that he's exhibiting for sure.
Right. I'm going to go at this one. Slack's not here, so I'm going to go at this one. Probably is my turn, isn't it? Yeah. 1997, man. I'm going to go with who Slack calls the Make-A-Wish child, Mace. I'm going to go at Mace's album, Harlem World.
Harlem World.
Listen, now for me, now obviously everyone knows what big, you know what I mean, what Biggie is. Incredible. We know that. So for me, I was all about Biggie. He was my favorite rapper for like that whole time he was out, obviously. And I was in college. It was 1997. I was in college. It was me, three of my brethren, shout out Damien, shout out Psychonius. It was us in the canteen. And we would always just debate hip hop all the time. It's funny because when I was thinking about this podcast, when me and Slack was thinking about starting it, what I always had in mind was those college days, man, where all we would do is just talk music. That's all we would do. Talk music, man. And sometimes the debates would get heated, man. But I remember my brethren was saying to me, like, oh, have you heard Mace's album? I was like, nah, I ain't listening to that. It was out and popping and everything. I was like, nah, I ain't listening to that. And he was like, but it ain't going to hold as much weight, what I'm saying, because you don't know him. But if you knew who it was that was saying, nah, listen to it. I was like, nah, bro, come on. I thought he was joking. He was like, nah. And he started breaking down every track, talking about who featured, the production. He was talking about the Busta Rhymes track and just everything. And I was like, for real? He was like, yeah. So I thought, you know what? On the strength of what you're saying, I'm going to check it out. And I ain't going to lie, man. I remember hitting him up and saying, nah, this album's hard. I don't like Mace as an MC at all. I think the best he's ever rapped in his life is on Niggas Done Started Something. Yeah, on X's album.
Yeah.
But apparently that was an old verse when he was like on his Murder Mace Children of the Corn times, you know what I mean, with Cam and Big L and that. But the direction he went in, that whole soft, playful, playboy type thing, I weren't feeling at all. Big would always big him up, and I just literally thought, you know, kind of like what you were saying, Jay, about Game. I just thought, well, he's a label mate, innit? You're just bigging him up to bring more money into the label and stuff like that. there's no way Biggie can rate Mace. There's no way he can rate Mace. You know what I mean? But yeah, man. Cut the story short, I was pleasantly surprised by that album. I do think it's a very good album. Still to this day, I think it's a good album for what it is. For what it is, and that's the beauty about hip hop, innit? Like, if you want that Vinnie Paz style, you go there. If you want this, you go there. If you want that, you go there. But just for that commercial, enjoyable, like whatever, I think it does what it does, man. And I think it's a good album.
I think
to this day,
there was a heated discussion about Mace on Twitter, wasn't it, like a few months ago? People were saying, generally about that album was a 5 mic classic. It's not.
No, I won't go there.
But, like, I'm not gonna pretend I didn't spin that. Like, so when that came out, I was 18. Like, I was clubbing. Do you know what I mean? What were they doing in the club? So, bad. It's all over the place, wasn't it? So
this is the thing,
like, I think I'm not going to sit here and say Mace can't rap, like, because I've heard some of his old Children of the Corn stuff, and it's really good. He did some stuff with, like, you know, that other guy from Harlem, McGruff. Like,
yeah.
So he did a couple of tunes on his albums that were Murder Mace kind of style. As you said about the word I can't say done started something. That is one of the hardest tunes ever. But also on that album, 24 Hours to Live is ridiculous. That is unbelievable tune. Like, everybody came hard on that, and I don't think Mace was like battered by any of them.
No, he wasn't. And look at the people that was on that song.
It's all right. Like, it's an all right album. Like, I would. Oh wait, hold on. Isn't there a tune with 8-Ball and MJG on that album?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
That's a hard.
That's one of the best songs on there.
It is, yeah, it's one of the best songs on there. The track with all right. All the singles were, and this is what I always say to people, man. Well, I've always been like that. I've always not had a problem with commercial hip hop. Like, I know a lot of people have gone through that stage where they're underground, they're hardcore only. I've never had a problem with being divided. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I've never had a problem. Like, I was a fan of Biggie and Tupac at the same time. I like Jay and Nas in 01. Do you know what I mean? I can take both worlds, and I don't mind commercial hip hop.
Yeah, so
even though I love underground.
I agree with that. See, if you've got, like, say off that album, that tune with Total, Tell Me What You Want, what's the difference between that and Can't You See with Biggie? Like, what's the difference?
This is right. My point. Do you know what I mean? And it's just that kind of feel. Like, I don't think it was a bad album. Do you know what I'm saying? It's not a 5 mic classic. Now, I'm going to sound very contradictory here, but if someone said to me it's a classic, I know people say 5 mic is a classic. I know, but I'm weird like that. I think an album can still be a classic if there's still a couple songs on there.
It doesn't have to be a 5 micer, man. Not at all.
Right. This is what I'm saying.
It was one of them albums that, for me, it was one of them albums that was like, that represented that Jiggy era. I feel like. Yeah. That was one of the big Jiggy era times. Mace was like of that time. So
it's memories, isn't it, of that period?
Yeah.
So that's what I mean. I didn't have a huge problem with it at the time. I see what it done to hip hop after, but in '97. I didn't have a huge problem with it, but that's what I'm saying about me. I had no problem with listening to that. Obviously, a lot of it was cheesy, but you know what it was? With Biggie was involved with it a lot. So I'm like, I like Biggie, innit? So, but I had no problem with listening to that and then listening to Wu-Tang Forever, and RZA would be dissing them at the beginning of this too. Do you know what I'm saying? So it's weird.
It's just more like fun and sort of laid back sort of hip hop, isn't it?
Yeah, you can't always be intense, man. Sometimes you want to you're not always intense, innit? For me, I see it like that. I don't always only listen to hip hop. I might listen to R&B sometimes. I can go a whole day without listening to hip hop. I can listen to pop all day, like 80s pop. And it's like R&B, I can listen to reggae. So for me, I look at hip hop the same way. I don't always need to hear hardcore hip hop. Like, I can't listen to MOP all day. you know what I'm saying?
I mean, saying that, I feel like that album was my introduction to DMX. So that was the first time I heard DMX. When I heard is this one of the tracks, the Take What's Yours, which is my favorite track on that album. So that was special about that album.
You know what, Jay? I think to be honest, that was probably a lot of people's introduction to DMX.
Because he was on Things album, but he was on Mike Geronimo's album.
Who brought that?
Yeah.
But that's my point. Like, I heard it, but it never. Jay was on that album, and that's what I say to a lot of people. Like Jay, DMX, Ja Rule, even they were on that Mike Geronimo album, and I had heard it, but they never stuck with me or registered. So when I heard DMX in '97, that felt like the first time. Huh?
Yeah, Locks were on that album as well. That Mike Geronimo.
Right. So a lot of it just didn't register for me because it weren't the one I went back to a lot.
It was the 24 Hours to Live. I think that's what took it over. I feel obviously he's on Take What's Yours, but he only done the hook. But when his verse on 24 Hours to Live, he was the last one.
Anchored it, didn't he? Yeah.
I mean, we came in school the next day. All we talked about was DMX off the strength of that song. So he was the top of the discussion, and that's where the hype built for him on that.
Comes in on that verse so hard as well, man. Like you just have to hold that.
Yeah, no, definitely, man. So hard bro. All right, Jay, what you got?
All right,
this might be our last one actually. What you got for your last one?
I'm gonna go just maybe a year or two past you, and I'm gonna go with the Hot Boys. The Hot Boys.
Ooh, okay.
They were my real introduction into like Southern rap. Like I didn't really listen to Southern rap that much around that time. It was East Coast, or it was Death Row and Ice Cube. I was more of a West Coast gangster rap, East Coast rap back then. Yeah. So, I first heard them and I was like, I think Ha was the first tune I heard. From Juvenile. Obviously, that was big. So that used to come on Your MTV Rap. So I used to watch that quite a lot. So, and obviously, I didn't know how to take it. It felt like I was listening to foreign language. I had no idea what the hell he was talking about. It felt like it was even rapping on the beat. Like I couldn't. The pockets was completely alien to me. It felt like so. But obviously, the song just kept coming on and coming on and coming on. And then there was the Back That Ass Up as well came on. Then started to hear more BG. Then I went to Florida and I was hearing more of it. And then I heard the Guerrilla Warfare album. And then once I started playing that album, I just became more of a fan of the Hot Boys. Came back, bought the BG album, Chopper City in the Ghetto. Bought 400 Degrees, the G Code, and I bought the Lil Wayne's first album as well. The Block is Hot. Yeah, I definitely, it became like a little mini movement for me, man. I was impressed as well that Manny Fresh was doing all the production, so that impressed me. And it was just different. It was something just completely different. No one in my area was playing any of this, so I was pretty much trying to put them onto this. And it was just completely different. It was a different sound. And I really enjoyed it, man. I thought it was a good era. Obviously, they were quite flashy in their videos as well, wearing all the platinum and the grills and that. It was just a completely different. It was like it was just the difference what made it stand out for me, and the sound of it, the sonics of Manny Fresh's beats. And Juvenile, he was quite melodic as well. Like melodic rap was apart from maybe like Bone Thugs. There wasn't really that much melody in hip hop, but I like Juvenile style, and it was and obviously just the fact that they move as a crew as well always makes it look a lot interesting, you know. So man, and I didn't expect to like that because when I first heard Ha, I thought what the hell is this? And I didn't really take to No Limit that much as well. I didn't really take to No Limit, but Cash Money, I was fucking with Cash Money.
Yeah. I think that's the thing, innit? Because like there was around at the same time, and I think particularly over here, people were tarring Cash Money with the same brush as No Limit, and the similar album covers and that, and No Limit were dog shit for the most part. But like, yeah, Hot Boys was different, man. That I remember that 400 Degrees that blew up. That was massive.
It did. Yeah.
Like, I mean, Jay got on a remix to do it as well to like boost him that year, and yeah, it was crazy, man.
Yeah, that's actually a good shout. Yeah, definitely. I haven't really gone through a phase of being into them hard. I ain't gonna lie, but there's definitely moments where like, yeah, that track's hard. But I struggle with whole albums, like in that sense. Out of the camp. Whole albums, it begins to feel a bit like 3 or 4 songs. Yeah, then I'll probably want to switch it up a bit. But yeah, it was a time, man. There's no doubt about that. It was undeniable. And even on the East Coast, man, you seen GV pop up and everything. Like, do you know what I mean? Yeah. Definitely in demand in that, man. But yeah, I hear that, man. Potter, what you got?
So the last one in it. So I'll wrap it up quick. So mine's an album. Is Memphis Bleak Made.
All right.
Yeah. So I know we kind of touched on Bleak before, and I think I've never really like disliked him. I've just thought he was a bit like he's all right. Do you know what I mean? But
he's just average. He's average.
Yeah, but I think as you said, like the pressure that was put on him to be like the next Jay, I think really, really messed him up. And like retrospectively, I can go back and go, actually, he's pretty good for like considering the sort of stuff we're saying is good like now. I've done this before though. Like I've gone. You remember when in the 90s when we went for a period where DJs were releasing albums like Kid Capri and Tony Touch was bringing it, and they were rapping on them. And I was actually thinking like some of these are actually better than MCs that we listen to now. Yeah. But Memphis Bleak, he's always been all right. Like when I've heard him on features, like he usually kills a feature. Like generally, like he's pretty good on stuff. But with this album, I wasn't really checking for it at all. But then I heard Murder at Marcyville, and I was like, what is this? What is this? And so that's him and Jay and Beans on it. And then, so I gave the album a chance. I was listening to it, and it was cool. It was like general sort of Memphis Bleak, Just Blaze stuff on there, and Kanye and whatever. And then Round Here dropped. Yeah. Motherfucker. Like, and if I remember rightly, Just Blaze did that beat as well, didn't he? I'm fairly certain he did, but it was like nothing I would ever heard Just Blaze do before, because it was something you'd expect to hear on like a T.I. album or something.
Yeah, is that one with Trick Daddy? Who's on that track?
Yeah, and T.I. Trick Daddy and T.I. Yeah.
And
I think somewhere they did a bootleg as like an 11.5-minute remix of it or something, and it's got almost every Southern rapper you can think of is on it. But that beat's hard. But I really enjoyed the album, man. I thought it felt like he'd made that with not as much pressure as to perform as he had on previous albums, like Coming of Age and whatever. And it just felt like he was a bit more comfortable with it, and you could tell that he was just enjoying what he was doing. I think it was about that time when Jay was dropping that, you know, if I die, Bleak's going to be all right forever with money. So it just seemed like he wasn't trying to force himself to perform to a certain level. And those two tracks, they're classics. They're hard as hell.
Yeah,
like,
they're
definitely so banging. Like you could put them up against anybody's 2 best tracks and you'd be like, yeah, well, that one's pretty good actually. So that was for me, like Memphis Bleak has always been one of them guys that was like, never really checked an album properly, never really liked him. And then he grabbed my attention with this one, and I gave the whole album a spin. And it's pretty good. Like I wasn't expecting to like it at all, but it's pretty good. And like some of the production, like it saves it, like we talked about from other, it's been carried a bit, but it really lyrically is better, like delivery's better, doesn't feel like he's trying to make himself into another Jay-Z, just feels like he's being Bleak. It's decent.
Yeah, I hear that, man. The other one I probably gave a lot of attention to was the Coming of Age album. I don't think I checked too much out after that.
That was the first one, wasn't it?
That's the first one, yeah. Same though, innit? Obviously, as a huge Jay fan, it was just too much pressure. I've never really rated Bleak like that. Like I've never really thought, right, like I just felt like it was way too much to put on an average MC. What Jay was putting on him. If he was doing all that, I mean, I know obviously they're different people. If he was doing all that, you know, he's going to be a new and improved Jay-Z and all that stuff about someone like Bleak Bleak, probably the only person out of Rockefeller that he probably could have done that with. Then you know what, it would have made a bit more sense. But I just never really rated Bleak like that. Sorry, Beanie Siegel. Even Source Money, I know he didn't sign to Rockefeller, but even Source, I thought was a cold MC, and I felt like if he had that push, and like, you know what I mean, I don't know if signing to Rockefeller would have been the thing for him, but I know he didn't. But even Source, man, I feel like he could have done more. Like lyrically, Source Money was insane.
He was good.
You know
yeah, he's pretty good, man. Although he's eating forever off that song he wrote for Puff Daddy, isn't he? So
yeah.
Never has to do any work ever again.
Exactly. But yeah, man.
I feel like the Rockefeller, that era of Rockefeller, like the production was so good. Yeah. I feel like every single project had the good amount of bangers, and I feel like Just Blaze was, at that time, Just Blaze was. I mean, that was his bread and butter, making bangers, making that sort of stadium sort of music. You know what I mean? He just knew how to do it, man. So it was just not.
Yeah, you're right, man. Even you stretch it out, even like with the whole Dipset and everything like that. That whole Rockefeller early noughties movement. Like you said, man, you got Kanye, Just Blaze, like man. What
would have happened if Big L hadn't got a shot and he'd have actually released something on Rockefeller?
Yeah, that would have been crazy as well. Another guy I think as well makes good beats was Bink as well. They don't really mention
Bink.
There's another one who makes some big beats as well. They just had the guys with the production. They had a good production team.
Some of them Bink beats. What's the one? Is it what's that one off the Blueprint album? That's just All I Need? All I Need. Yeah. That's Bink, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that's Bink. And he done 1900 Hustler, I think. It's Bink.
Yeah, Bink, man. And then the bass in Bink's beats, man. They're like, he don't get mentioned enough. You're right, man. That's a good shout, man.
Yeah, you're right, man. There was heat on almost everything that dropped from Rockefeller at that time. Like for about a 5 or 6 year period, there was no bad albums. There was some that were better than others, but like just heat. Everything had at least 4 or 5 heated tracks on it.
Yeah,
like even Freeway. I don't like Freeway. I'm not a fan, to be honest with you. Never have been. But even his Philadelphia Freeway album, the production on that, man. Do you know what I mean? I don't listen to it much because I don't like Freeway's rapping, but
the flip side, the crazy tune.
Have
you heard? He's on a new Graph album, like Graph.
Yeah. I've heard that. Yeah,
really good tune, man. Freeway's Freeway's come down a notch, and it's much more palatable than it used to be.
I used to struggle, man. When people used to always talk about Freeway, I used to be like, I can't do it, man. Like no disrespect, but he's exactly the same as Westside Gun for me. Like they actually ruined some songs for me, man. They're like, this track's actually hard, but they ruin it. Like, do you know what I mean? It's like if I just had the beat for this song, like without their vocals, man, it's like, do you know what I mean? But I rate him obviously. I know he's been through a lot as a person. I rate him, but just you know what I mean, musically, nah. But the production and that. But he's on that new Graph one, isn't it?
Yeah.
That is a dope album.
Rex 42's on that as well, which was bitch.
Huh?
Did you know it's like that? Rex 42's on that Graph album as well.
Yeah, that's one of the best songs on the album, I feel.
Probably, and I'm like, I don't know how that hookup came about.
It's
but that
a
was
really good album, man. Like I've got back into Graph a lot recently. Last few drops of his have been absolutely
agree. He's always been one of my favorite MCs. But I always liked him on freestyles, and I never really liked his music. But I think lately his music's got a lot better. I thought the Oracle 3 was class. I really like that one.
Yeah,
I thought that was a really good album. So, and then this last one he's put out as well is a good album as well. 38 Special on the production. So it's good, man. I really like it. Yeah,
definitely, man. All right, man. So we're gonna wrap up today's episode, man. So surprise favorites. I'm sure, you know, Jay and Potter both had more on the list. I definitely had more on my list, but for time's sake, we like to keep it to a certain amount. So, yeah, feel free to comment as always, man. Any albums, artists, songs that, you know, were surprise favorites to you, you weren't expecting to love as much as you did, but you ended up loving it, man. So yeah. So Jay, thank you for joining us, man. Do you wanna, I don't know, shout your handle out or anything, or anywhere people can check out, you know, whatever you do, bro.
Well, you can find me on Twitter, man, landmine111. You know, I'm not always active, I'm not always tweeting, but if you at me, I'll always respond, man. So you can catch me there, man.
Yes. Potter, what are you saying, bro?
Again, thanks for having me. I'm beginning to like this regular slot. So yeah, tap me up on Twitter, Reggie McWorthy, aka Luke Page. We now know that's the AK. That's staying. By the way,
Luke Page, you know. That is too funny, Luke Page, you know. But yeah, man. And from me, as always, E Major. Shout out to Slack, who'll be back with us next week. My Type of Hype, the podcast that celebrates hip hop and not just the hype. So until next week, stay blessed. We'll see you then. Peace.
Peace.